I need you to sit up.
Okay,
You got to be in the frame. There we go.
I'm framed.
You're framed.
It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I'm gonna sit like this for an hour and a half.
You can do it. Welcome to The Crunch, the only podcast that's having a normal one. It's your boy Ethan.
And I'm Patrick, and I'm sick.
I'm
sorry.
What's wrong? What did you? What STI did you pick up?
That's a Stevie transmitted infection.
I was gonna say seriously transmittable illness. So, but that works too.
My young son, my toddler.
Oh, blaming it on the youth.
Toddlers,
Typical
as we know.
Boomer. Typical
toddlers,
boomer.
as we know. Just germ magnets, right? Like just they're a ball of germs. And he was sick, and I was taking care of him because Phoebe wasn't feeling too good either. And so, I was taking care of him. And I'm laying down with him. He would not stay asleep unless we were there because he was so feverish. And he's sitting there and he's crying. He's like going to sleep and he's breathing in my face. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get so sick. He's sticking his hand on my face, like sticking it in his mouth, putting it on my face. Like there's nothing I could do. Right.
Yeah, that's the worst.
It's just like seeing a train coming. You can't stop it. And you're on the track, and you could leave your son on the train track, but you can't leave your son on the train track. Then
why are the options only get struck by train or leave son on tracks? Why can't we remove the son from the tracks and we also leave?
I'm a philosopher. Okay, there's only two awful options. That's all you're getting from me. And so now I sound
reminds me of that conflict.
What was that? It's great that everyone now understands the conflict in the Middle East.
We'll get there.
As well as they understood epidemiology and.
Yeah, I was gonna say whatever. We're gonna talk about it today on the podcast, but I'm worried that our whatever predictions that we make or whatever things we say is going to be like when we talked about COVID in March of 2020 or February of 2020.
This is gonna be over in like a couple.
Yeah, days. You're gonna get the coronavirus. And then it ended up being a massive infringement upon human rights for years.
Hey, look at that! And this is starting out with a massive infringement upon human rights and might end up
with a plague.
Not being a big deal. I'm excited to hear your opinions on Israel-Palestine, knowing just a mere 3 months ago you didn't even realize Palestine wasn't officially a country.
Okay. We don't need to expose. We don't need to expose me.
We were sitting in the Ron Beach Hotel and you were like, what? So people can't just go to Palestine? No.
I didn't say that.
He was like, people in the West Bank can't just leave. No,
I'm being misrepresented right now. I'm being misrepresented. Currently.
It was so funny. I was like, that was the bit where I kept saying, famously, no.
Yeah,
that's the big thing.
Yeah,
they're all upset.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't realize. I didn't put together. I didn't know what the Gaza Strip was. I didn't know what the West Bank was. And I also didn't know that it was basically like a South African apartheid ghetto. Like I just didn't know that.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy.
I thought it was like a country that competed in the World Cup that just happened to be close to Israel at the time. And nope, it was wrong. It was very, very wrong. But I wanted to tell you,
it is crazy that there's two countries with permanent observer status. I think are the two countries with observer status the Vatican and Israel? It might be the case. One of them just a old grandpa sitting in a house by himself, and the other one is a segregationist.
All right, that's crazy. You're right. The United Nations welcomes many international agencies, entities, and 2 non-member states as observers: the State of Palestine and Vatican City. Maybe that means that the Catholic Church is uniquely positioned to solve this crisis. The Vatican be like, hey, Palestine, get over here. You and me, we got a lot in common.
I actually think that means that the Vatican is uniquely situated, just like Palestine, to do absolutely jack about this.
Yeah, do nothing.
I think that means that permanent observer status means that you can do quite literally nothing.
Yeah. Well,
it
means you can do
nothing.
No, it means you can do nothing within the framework of the UN, which is a made-up student council of the world. So, like, you can still do something. Like, there's no like, you don't have to be a member of the UN to invade another country. Clearly, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
North Korea is not in the UN. They could do whatever
they want.
Yeah.
I'm just mad that we gave up our position as the United Nations to be like, play second fiddle to the fake United Nations.
It is
I just don't like that.
It's far gone are the days.
What a great idea, an international organization that unites all mankind. I wish someone had thought of that earlier.
But
this one prevents war. Oh, does it?
Gone are the days that men would come to the Vatican, emperors, and kneel at the foot of the papacy and beg for intervention. The
United Nations is very clearly not stopping international conflicts. It hasn't been doing a very good job.
Yeah. Can we track, since the United Nations was founded, number of cringe posts on Twitter? Because that's the real crime. Everyone's been posting cringe. That's the thing that makes me upset. Well,
it's awful.
The loss of life and the war crimes too.
I wish they would stop posting cringe.
I wish that if they would just stop posting cringe, then maybe we could solve this. Have they considered?
People, I wish you would stop standing with people. I wish you would. I don't care who you stand with. First of all, you super don't stand with because you're not in danger. You're standing with them as far away as you could possibly get from the situation. All you're doing is just being like, I ideologically identify with the people who cut off that kind of baby's head.
Yeah.
It's like, that's who I stand with.
Yeah. It's, I saw a post that was, if you're this upset about 40 kids getting beheaded, Israel has about 20,000 abortions a year, which is 54 per day. So if we're going to, as they say, glass the Gaza Strip because of the one thing, what does that mean about Israel? And not to say that one, that we shouldn't be outraged at one because of the other. We should be outraged at both. But at a certain point,
let's be fair. Let's be consistent.
But at a certain point, how, like, I don't know. Am I more correct about a thing because I'm more outraged about it than you are at the present time? I don't know.
Well, I mean, we know that like the currency, like social outrage is like a currency. How outraged you are about a thing, as long as it's the correct thing. If you're outraged about the wrong thing, you sound cringe.
I did see a tweet from a guy that was like, it's been 3 days since these attacks, and my company hasn't released a statement. Where is the outrage? It's like, why do you need where you work to release a statement?
Why do you need a statement?
Why do you need? What is a statement going to do? It's very odd. It's all very strange.
The conversation is going this way.
I wanted to talk about my podcast closet, but you haven't given me an opportunity. You keep cutting me off.
Real quickly, I really need to remove the comically large photo of my brother from the wall.
Why?
Because it doesn't make sense. Like, no one understands what that's there for.
I want you to know that only about 70 people watch this on YouTube, and I promise they all probably either get it, or if they don't get it, they don't care. But
fair enough.
For this conversation, that picture of Nick can be emblematic of the American boy that we're going to be sending to Iran in a couple of weeks. So it's a good reminder of what we're losing, of what we're willing to sacrifice. And it's millions of Nick Nevis, strapping young lads that we're shoving into the Middle East meat grinder.
Think of all of the Tim Tebows that we're sending overseas.
It's the argument against abortion, like you've killed the child that could cure cancer, but instead it's the argument that you've killed the next great Florida quarterback by engaging in a war with Iran.
Yes.
That's what we're losing. It's like, no, but I'm sure someone somewhere is thinking that.
I want to talk straight.
I want to talk about my
Podcast
podcast
closet.
closet. I know
You're in
this
the
is a big
podcast
departure
closet.
for what we're talking about, but I'm in the podcast closet. And as you can
The
see,
bunker.
I've got a curtain
Oh,
here, and
yeah.
I've got another. Can we see another curtain here? And then there's a curtain on this wall, and I don't know if it's
Okay.
doing anything, but it's better than it was, and that's
Yeah, you don't
nice.
sound. It doesn't sound very echoey.
It doesn't sound echoey. That's good.
No, it's very
That's
good.
good. That's what we're going for. But
Apparently,
but you
echoey doesn't
saw
matter though, because we were in a pretty echoey room the other week, and our mics sounded fine.
which room?
The room where we were together
Oh, the together room.
at the
I was going to say
vault.
you've seen this place because you were
I
here in
have.
person, close to my bones and my body,
I rested my
and
head against that wall.
now you're far away.
I know.
And since then, we've been to Chicago. We engaged in some merrymaking and some riffraff.
Tomfoolery.
Yeah.
We went to bed early
We did go
That
to
was
bed
nice.
early. Patrick and I slept in the same room
again,
again.
just like old times.
I know. It was
Did I
nice.
snore really bad?
No, I didn't. I slept through the night. Katie Ruby was very nice, and she got a double room in the hotel, and Patrick had a single room, and I was going to sleep on John Blevins' floor. And she gracefully was like, hey, what if you got the double room and I took the single room, and you
Yeah.
guys both got to sleep on a bed? And I was like, oh,
That's nice.
wonderful. Yeah, she was very
Yeah.
kind. Everyone should subscribe to her podcast, which I think my episode on Frontiers of Faith is coming out.
Ooh,
It's
that's
either
exciting.
already come out or it's about to come out. But I'm competing with Father Harrison to have the most listened to episode, which I don't think I
Frontiers
will.
of Faith.
I don't think I will do
The
because he
hottest
has
podcast
thousands of
on
followers, and
line
I do
right
not.
now.
Frontiers of Faith?
Oh yeah, it's up there.
Have you heard of The Crunch?
No, who's
This
that?
show right now?
Yeah,
But what was your? Did you like the time that we spent together? Did you have fun?
I really did. I had so much fun.
Really?
I really liked. Yeah, Pete Makaitis and I are connected on
Dude.
LinkedIn now.
He connected with me on LinkedIn. I was like, let's freaking go. There was a guy. We were at this conference, and there was a guy named Pete Makaitis, who I was
like
like,
the way
oh,
he
you have
talked.
He's like, oh, I have a podcast. I was like, yeah, me too. And I come to find out that his podcast is 20 times the size of our podcast. And he's made thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, probably millions of dollars from this podcast.
I think he's made full-time income off of his podcast.
Full enough to employ other people income
Yep.
off of his podcast. And I was just like, I was in awe.
Well, it's because he picked a valuable niche. We picked college students.
We
They didn't have any money.
I know. We picked something based out of emotion. We let feelings get in the way of the facts, which I know of another person that's been happening to this week.
Who, me?
No, Ben Shapiro.
He picked an audience of people who want to be really good at their jobs. Those people tend to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Great audience choice.
But it's not even because the audience, I guess because the audience has more spending power than ads in theory would be more valuable on his program. I just need, hey, if you want to help the show, you can obviously go to Patreon, but just get richer. Just make more money.
I don't know what to tell you.
And then our podcast will become more valuable and you will be a stakeholder. I know. That's all you tell me.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make money.
I know.
I'm in the kitchen every day. I'm cooking.
Yeah.
I was on fire today, dude.
Really? I don't want to hear about it.
I'm not going to tell you about it.
Okay.
It's a secret.
We can talk about it on the bonus show.
I don't tell you anymore because I know you hate hearing about it.
It's not that I hate hearing about it. It's just like my job moves pretty slow and it's kind of hard. It's like there's not a lot of progress. And every time I hear about your job, you're like doing 10 things. And I'm like, isn't that great? And I'm like, yeah, that is great. But you do 10 new things every week.
It's a ton of quick hits. That's what it is. Although this is what I learned. I stopped doing. If you track a bunch of things, you feel like you're winning at least in one thing, Yeah. You're like, oh, I called the most people I ever called in one day. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't really mean much, but it does give you that little dopamine hit where you're like,
nice. I don't get any dopamine hits from like tracking myself,
Really?
No.
I guess I'm doing it like against other people. So there's a little bit of competition there too.
Yeah.
Like, hey, person who gets the most yeses today gets like a bonus. And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm getting that.
Yeah. I'm
and you
just
don't
not
really
built
have
that
that 'cause you're
way.
just by yourself.
Yeah, I just don't. Well, I also just
It's all
don't
good.
care. Like I could never be like if we were together, even like if I was in the same room or like in a sales bullpen,
Yeah,
and
you
it was
wouldn't
like
do
one
it.
of those places with the bell or the gong, I would just be like, why do you guys? Why is everyone so mad all the time?
Dude,
You know
I'm willing to spend podcast money on this, but we need to get you the M code. That's what we need to do.
what is that?
It's like the only personality assessment that I've actually ever enjoyed. All
We're
right,
gonna assess
it's
my personality.
yeah. So the M stands for motivation. So it's a it's a
Wonderful.
it's an assessment. It's an assessment of what motivates you, and it's story based. So you basically write down, here are the three things that here's like 20 times that I felt extremely satisfied with a result. And
Okay.
then
What if I can only come up with like 3 or 4, like in my
I don't
life,
remember.
in my
I
whole
don't
life?
remember. But then you take those experiences, they ask you questions about those experiences, you
Mhm.
quantify it, and then they tell you, okay, like I'm really motivated by collaboration. So when I'm working with people, but I also
Mhm.
want to be like key. So I want to be with people, but I also want to be the only person who does what I do. Like I get demotivated when there's multiple me's
Mhm. Mhm.
on a team, right? Um, I also want to like get really, really good at the thing that I'm doing. Like I want to be the expert at it, and I want to be front and center. Like I'm motivated by those things. Like when I'm doing those things, I get really motivated. And so like those things aren't going to motivate you. And so if we're
No,
like, hey,
no.
Ethan, we're going to put you up front, and you're gonna be like the expert on, you know, dating, and we're gonna ask you, but it's like I don't really care about that. I just really want to XYZ. I don't know, but I'm interested in what motivates you, and we gotta
I
lean into those motivations
Me too. I too am interested in what motivates me. Uh,
because
I'm
something
just
motivates you.
no, I don't think it does.
You're like nothing does.
No, I'm like one of them. I'm like one of them hand push mowers, like
Oh
that,
yeah,
not even self-propelled, not even with like a motor. It's one of those with the blades that spin, like they used to have in the 50s.
sure.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
You're an
That's me.
external. Yeah, you're external forces only.
I
You
get
don't
I get
no
I get
internal.
pushed. I'm motivated by time, fear, uh God,
Uh, deadlines, failure.
deadlines,
Um,
failure,
yeah,
my dad. Just all wonderful things that are
sure.
good and healthy. Yeah. Um,
External
no, that would
pressures.
be good.
Yeah, I get
How
that.
much does it cost? Because I'm not M
I don't think it
code.
costs that much.
The M code is a machine control language for CNC matching. I think that's the wrong thing.
M core. I think maybe they
M
changed it to M core.
core, M
M
core.
core. It was M code, then
Okay.
they changed it to M
M
core.
core looks like a plumbing fixture. The Moen
I
Align
think
M
I may
Core
have dreamt
3.
this.
I came up with a personality assessment in my mind palace, and you can't buy it online anywhere, actually. Oh dear. That's great though. That's great.
I found
Um,
it's M core M code motivationcode.com.
motivationcode.com. Is this going to pull up a picture of like horse genitalia when I type this in? That used to be when my friends would trick me. They'd be like, go to this website. And I would go to the website thinking that it would have a cool game.
Go to penisland.com.
Yeah, something like that. And then it would be huge, huge horse genitalia. And I was like, I'm 13 and this feels wrong, even though it's an animal.
Is this the same thing? I
This
don't know
looks
if it's
right.
the same thing.
Motivation code. This looks like the type of website that you would like.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same one though.
Bright colors, a lot of text. Anyway, this is boring.
It's like $89.
Oh, sheesh. Well, we'll talk
Come
about it.
on,
Well,
man. That's
at the
fine.
next business meeting, we'll talk about it.
The amount of value it'll unlock, Ethan.
That's how they get you.
It'll unlock it. Look, Ethan, here's the thing.
Tell me.
If we figure out what internally motivates you, I think you will become electric. All right.
Patrick, here's the
Ethan,
thing. Here's the thing.
Ethan,
I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm
what?
already electric. Okay, I need you to know that.
I'm an EE guy.
I say EE. I've been electric. I've been in an electric factory since the day I was born. I'm producing every time I speak, gigawatts coming out of me. All right.
That's what dolphins study. They study eat. They're eat.
That's awful.
Thanks.
You're gonna make me electric. That's your plan.
Yeah, like Mr. Electric from
Because you think
Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
You think I'm not electric.
No, I think that you get really demotivated sometimes and you hate it. And I want you to figure out what motivates you and put words to it. So you go, I need to seek out situations where XYZ.
I guess write down what motivates you being electric. Oh man. Anyway, no, I think that's good. I think that would be good. I think if you support that, say so in the Discord. Let me know. Help me get my life back on track.
Yeah, like there's like 100 different motivators that are in there, and it's like I think the reason why they do it is so that I don't know, so like your boss can like manipulate you into doing what they want. That's what it's for.
Probably.
I'm pretty sure that's what it's for.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. You know, at a certain point, you gotta like with these work personality assessments. At a certain point, you just gotta lie. if you're in the wrong kind of job, that's just true. Yeah. I've learned this.
Yeah, that is.
If you're in a certain kind of job, you gotta lie. You gotta make sure that like figure out what they want you to say. I'm a people person. I'm
detail oriented.
I'm detail oriented. I'm so strict with rules. I care so much about
authority.
I respect authority.
I would never join a union in my life.
Not even United States, not even Union Station. All right. I take a plane. I don't even go.
Communists?
Unions are.
You mean those bastards we fought in the Cold War?
You mean demons? Yeah, I've never even met
one. Yeah, I never think about them. I trust in Jesus Christ, the capitalist one.
The capitalist Jesus Christ.
The one with the American flag cape that he wears.
I pray my American flag rosary every day.
Hey, that's not, we're getting a little too close to home there. A lot of people praying their American flag rosary for Israel this week. So
oh yeah,
that is a little
really. I've seen
what do you mean?
That seems like it doesn't fit. It's a different country.
You'd think that
they do take our money, which is crazy.
The number of times I saw American politicians, people voted into office, say this week, an attack on Israel is an attack on America. It's like, guys, you got to attack America for it to be an attack on America. Like, it has to be
incorrect.
It's like in the phrasing. I understand. You can say like an attack on Israel is an attack on America's interests, an attack on an American ally. You can't attack our friends. We support our friends. Like, you can say those things. We have not annexed the state of Israel.
Please stop doing the thing that started World War I. Come on. You can't let a little assassination turn into a thing.
But they haven't assassinated anybody yet.
Not like they most just murdered. Yeah.
Remember, assassination kind of implies like a high profile target. Like they just they just killed indiscriminately, which worse.
Pretty crazy. Yeah,
for sure. Because innocent people, you should not kill them. All right, so let's talk about this. We've hinted at
non-combatants generally not good to kill those.
Yeah. So tell me, Patrick.
Yeah, what's good?
Are we on the brink?
Brink?
Are we staring into the maw of World War III? Hot takes only, gut reaction, go.
Nah.
What, are you scared? You're scared to go to war?
No. I don't have to. I have asthma.
They don't care when
they don't care now. That's at the now I'm good until at least the tail end. Like once the first million or so die, I'm toast. Like I'm definitely getting thrown into the meat grinder. Sucks,
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go back to school.
I think the best bet. I read it. There was a thread on Twitter about how to avoid the draft. Not that I would ever avoid the draft, but
I would super avoid the draft. Not above it.
I mean, I would avoid the draft too. But the first thing you can do is get married. So you've done that in spades. Well done. If you get married, you have a kid, then you're exempt probably from the first couple of rounds.
From the
Who
first
knows?
round, yeah.
Who knows what the government's going to do? And they'd have to get pretty deep into like they'd have to go through all the single guys before they start taking the married men. The next best thing you can do is get a job working for a defense contractor. And that pretty much guarantees you're not going anywhere. So
That's
if
helpful.
you can lock up a print advertising sales gig for Raytheon, I think you'll be safe. Or Lockheed.
Lockheed's nearby.
Are they? That's true. You're on the Space Coast. You could get a cushy Space Force job, no problem. Actually,
easy.
Yeah,
live off the dole,
of Uncle Sam. So you don't think we're careening towards a global conflict?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, I think if things go really wrong, we could be.
I mean, like, yes, but that's always true. It's like I don't know. My default is like
nothing ever happens.
Nothing ever happens. It's just all the same, and we're in this like,
end
God
of history.
Said,
you believe what Francis Fukuyama said?
God said, hey, there's wars and famines, but that doesn't mean anything, right? So that the way I see that is like that means that the end of days is going to come so quietly, like just nothing's really going on today. Like, oh no,
is that what that means?
I don't think that. I don't know for a fact that's what it means.
I mean, I've read the book of Revelation. It seems to imply that there's going to be quite a bit of stuff happening leading up to.
Yeah, but that stuff is all like symbolic, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like all the evil and stuff. It's like we're so far removed from the evil that's happening. Like it's just we are never going to be affected by it. It's just like the people that like you need to keep people that are in powerful countries like safe and fat and happy. They need to not know that there's suffering going on, because then they'll do something about it, right? If they suffer, they'll be like, oh gosh, we got to do something about it. You got to keep them like focused on things that don't really matter, and then they'll never, it's like, then yeah, they'll just keep voting for people in office. And I don't know. I don't care. That's the thing. I really don't care. I've got stuff going on here. I've got like a family, and I've got like, friends, and I've got a community.
Yeah, but talking about your family on a podcast is boring.
That's true. You want to talk
geopolitics.
Yeah, we got to make people feel anxious. We got to make people.
Do you think? No, not anxious, but it's like people are really like, people are actually anxious about this. Like I know people in my life who are thinking about the war and thinking about what it might mean for them and like how their life might change over the next 20 years, and that is making them anxious because like
sure, that's true. Yeah,
there is a scenario in which I'm not saying this will happen, but I'm just saying like to maybe give some empathy for people who might be stressed. But like if we get dragged into something in Iran, Israel, Lebanon, whatever, right? We could get dragged into something over there, and we're still funding and involved in the Ukraine Russia thing, and something pops off in China and Taiwan. Like America does not have the might and the power that it did in like, I don't know, the 60s to the 80s to wage a 3-front war or proxy war.
Wars don't happen like that anymore, though. We're just gonna send
robots. Maybe
like just drones and stuff. Like war just looks different now than it did. It's not fun. Like
you're saying that we have enough drones to to go to war against China, Russia, and the entire Islamic.
All I'm saying
state?
is you don't misplace an F-35 if you don't have enough of them. You know what I mean? Like you don't misplace weapons of mass destruction if you're short. Like
right.
You keep you keep really good track of them.
Mm-hmm.
The United States military is more powerful than it's ever been. It's like 90% of our budget. Ethan is gone. He's left. Where is he? I'm just going to keep talking.
I'm back, baby.
Oh, there he is.
We're good. We're good. Okay, so you were saying the United States military is more powerful than it's ever been.
Yeah,
Cap,
it's like
but keep going.
75%. Okay, maybe it's not like the most dominant force or whatever. Like, oh, we got a really strong navy, but it's like that stuff doesn't. Sorry, Anna, that stuff doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Like that's not the thing that wins wars anymore. The Cold War fundamentally changed. Like
But Patrick, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know what wins wars anymore. You know, like there has not been, other than like Russia, Ukraine. Like, has there really been any type of like conventional conflict, nation against nation?
We do know what wins wars.
What wins wars? Tell me.
Intelligence.
Guy have the biggest brain.
His biggest brain.
Guy with the biggest gun comes in. What's your big brain gonna do now,
like, look,
brother?
We've made it as a human race. We've made it past the first beast in the forest between life and death, right? We've made it past the first beast in Dante's Inferno, right? The beast of the passions, right? Of the flesh, right? We've made it past that. We've reached the beast of the passions, right? The blood shed and the awful war and like the that part of the circles of hell. And now we're at the final beast, the sins of the intellect, right? This is it. We've reached an inflection point. Wars are won with intelligence. This is what we learned in World War II. This is what England and America learned in World War II.
I'm pretty sure we won World War II with two really big bombs that we dropped on civilians. Like, what are you talking about?
Sure, that's part of it.
It is part of it. Like, I get what you're saying.
How did we get to that point though?
By having
one major point was that
over and over again in the Pacific.
We used intelligence that we stole from we used intelligence to figure out that the Japanese commander was flying on this date to this place, and we took out that plane. Right? Like we bait and switched Hitler and we invaded in the other, like it was intelligence allowed us to make those moves. But now it's pure intelligence. That's like that was what the Cold War was. It was just chess moving each other, like outthinking the other person. And now, what's happened since World War II? What's the biggest economic engine in the world right now, Ethan? What is it?
Bitcoin, crypto, OnlyFans.
Nope. Yes. No.
Patreon.
What are the biggest companies, the most valuable companies? What do they sell?
Tech, I would say. I'm going to go with tech.
What do they sell?
Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google. They sell information, I would say. That would be what I would think. Yeah.
They sell information.
Yeah.
The entire economy since World War II has been buying, selling, trading information. I mean, the entire debt system is structured around people betting based on odds and information about people, whether or not they'll pay back your debt. Your credit score, which you use to buy everything, is based off of how likely you are to run a balance and pay it off. Like just in that sweet spot of enough to make enough money. Like you're not going to pay it all off at once. Like you're not going to have no debt, but you're not going to bring up a credit card debt and go bankrupt, right? Like they work that sweet spot. The entire economy is based off of learning information about you so that they can sell you stuff. And then in figuring out ways to mass and machine learn and figure out those things. And so it's like we don't know what wins wars. We totally do. It's intelligence. We don't know how we're going to use intelligence, but what we do know is that the guys who are paragliding into countries and shooting people, they're not operating. They're not going to be buying intelligence from Amazon, right? Like they don't have these big intelligence structures. Right, the insurgent groups don't have intelligence structure. They're basically just gangs. It's not a thing. Like there's gone are the days of Sergei Serenov or whatever his name was capping a guy in a crowd.
Gavrilo Princip.
Yeah. Who was that? Who am I thinking of?
You're thinking of the guy that wrote
That shot JP2.
Yeah, I think you are thinking of
Sirhan.
Sirhan. I loved his songs in the 80s. He was great.
Yeah, like those days are over. Where like that starts a war, you know.
Yeah.
It's now it's like now it's the info war, right? That's what it is. I know. It was what can I say? The man was prescient.
I think I hear what you're saying. I think it's a little bit reductive because I do think that there are other elements to conflict other than intelligence. And so what I was just really getting at was regardless of how much intelligence we have, it will still be a strain for the United States if wars that we are involved in break out in multiple parts of the world. And so what does that mean for the average person? What does that mean for the amount of food in grocery stores if we have to feed? Like, yeah, you say it's going to be drones, but like you still need soldiers to operate the drones somewhere, you know, like, so what does that mean for food? What does that mean for the economy? What does that mean for like banks and interest rates and like foreclosures on homes? What does that mean for inflation? What does it mean for the job market? What does that mean for like
manufacturing? Because one of those,
manufacturing. What does that mean for local stability? Like if the border stays open and there's wars all over the world and people come here, what does that mean for cities? What does that mean for suburbs? What does that mean for local governments? What does that mean for police forces? So I think that there are valid questions of, you know, and that's obviously like a worst case scenario. Like I don't think
perhaps the answer is not nothing's going to change, but it's like, oh, don't worry, it's not going to be like World War II rationing, and that it's going to be much worse. It's going to be something unimaginable. Like we're not going to have victory gardens. It's like, I don't know, who knows what's going to happen.
Do you think the average American would even be able to plant a victory garden if they had to?
Not at all. Not even kind of.
We don't have a population. There are no Rosie the Riveters because today, I'm not going to say that. The bicep's just not going up anymore. It goes down now. Do you know what I mean?
It's like when Popeye before he eats his spinach.
It's like a little, but it's the whole country is like Popeye before he eats the spinach. You know,
and there's no spinach.
We don't know
how to grow it.
Yeah. So I'm not concerned. I think the other element too that is odd, and this is probably something you'll be interested in, is the hypocrisy, maybe not the hypocrisy, the what do you call this? The contradiction or the what is it called when you're like deluding yourself and you like can't
cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance. Thank you. The cognitive dissonance of specifically people on the left, like BLM coming out in favor of Palestine.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of people
clarify, we're talking Hamas, not Palestine, right?
A lot of people saying free Palestine, which indicates a support of what Hamas is doing or has done. Because and this is the interesting thing about it, I think this is the fascinating conversation that's going on, is that it's this conversation about colonization and decolonization. Like that phrase that was going around, this is what decolonization looks like. What did you think this would be? You think they were just going to write letters and all these things? And it's interesting to frame Israel as the colonizers, which is just funny historically, like biblically. And then it's also interesting to have people say like, oh, well, we have to decolonize. And then some people asking these people straight up like, okay, so if decolonization is good, and if violence to achieve decolonization is good, does that mean that Native Americans can break into your house, shoot your family, and drag your wives out into the streets in the name of decolonization? And I have seen multiple people say like, well, I wouldn't like it, but if that's what it has to be, it's like,
it's just goofy. That's just people.
How do you pill yourself like to be so afraid of your own whiteness that like that is your, like that's the stance that you take, you know?
It's not consistent, first of all, which is crazy because like if we're gonna play the game of like tracing back who was there first, the promised land, super the Jews, like they got it, that's theirs, you know,
it's theirs.
If you can legitimately trace yourself,
you would say that the Jews have an historical claim to Israel. You're going to say that publicly right now.
If consistent with the how I understand, well, they were here first and you colonized it. I think that this is great because now we can wipe away the issue that people have with the Book of Joshua because they were just decolonized.
It's
The
true.
Canaanites were not there first.
Well, why is
Jericho
God so violent in the Old Testament? He was just decolonizing.
Decolonizing, baby. That's just what it was.
Dang, that's a great argument. We're gonna use that forever.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just I don't know why or what. I don't know why like being anti-Israel but anti-Semitism is like liberal, and I don't understand. I don't understand why like the right is super pro-Israel and the left is super pro-Palestine. I don't get it. I really don't. I don't understand. There's no like logical connection for it for me, but like there's a lot of the cognitive dissonance that I've seen is like if we're talking about if it's like so wrong to go into what someone else's and like live there, if it's not your functionally, what's the difference between like Israelites going to Israel and refugees going to America? Like fundamentally, what's the difference between those two things?
There is no difference.
And I'm like fine with both of those things.
Yeah.
So it's like let's be consistent across the board. I'm not saying now we should not let refugees in because we're decolonizing Israel. I think that all of this is stupid. And I think that we should
You think that an open border is good?
I think that refugees need a place to go.
Where do you draw the line at where a refugee stops and someone taking advantage of your humanitarian aid begins?
It's a good question. Sounds like a job for someone who deals with these things directly. I don't really know.
Such as Donald J. Trump.
Donald Trump. Wherever DJT.
Where's DJT at a time like this? Let me call him up.
Where have all the good men gone and where are all the Trumps?
Yeah, part of me is I'm hoping that people are seeing they're seeing the cognitive dissonance and realizing like, okay, so the people that were all in favor of, the George Floyd, the Summer of Peace, the BLM, like the people who just fell over backwards to support those people are now also falling over backwards to support this group that allegedly has beheaded children. That is still unconfirmed, by the way.
I haven't seen anything because I don't want to.
I know there was this report that came out that Hamas had beheaded 40 children, and it's being repeated over and over again, but it's unsubstantiated. And so to me, it feels like a little bit of classic little wartime propaganda, get the people whipped up, type beat, which is somebody made a very interesting point. It's like, okay, well, isn't it bad enough that they like shot and killed people and dragged them out into the streets and like took the women away? And it's like, yeah, that is bad, but it's not like as simple and as visceral as beheading children, So it's like, it makes sense why someone would fabricate that to increase the emotions that are going on. But I think that people recognize
if someone was going to make something up like that and they picked 40, that's a pretty
interesting.
Little if that's a very Old Testament number, I'll say that.
Yeah. Like, I didn't even make that connection.
If you had to pick a random big number and you're like,
yeah,
a Christian would have picked 66,
right?
Like that would have been their weird random number.
So I think if people recognize the cognitive dissonance and realize like, okay, I don't really want to support Hamas, who are terrorists that are executing people and are definitely not in the right. And I also don't want like to set the precedent that anybody who claims to be decolonizing can just kill me if they want to. I'm hoping that kind of moves people more to the center and kind of like away from. I think this is going to be one of those things that just pushes people more people further to the edges, but also it will push people more to the center. Like I think there's going to be a split on the left and the right, and it's going to be half and half. Like all the people on the right are going to be, half the people on the right are going to be more for Israel. Half the people on the right are going to be like, hey, maybe we shouldn't fund Israel's war and Ukraine's war. And
No,
then
I disagree. I think
you
it's
think
I think
so?
it's I think it's polarizing. I don't think
I
there's really anything that pushes people towards the center anymore. I don't really
I
think there
think
even is a
I think
center
there
anymore.
is. I think there is. Because like I don't think you can have something like this where the two options are we fund the Israeli state government's war or we support the execution of innocent Jews. If those are the two options, I see a lot of people saying no, I'm not picking either of those options. You know? Like this feels like one of those things where it's like I've seen more people saying I don't care, I don't want anyone to win here. Like I'm actually picking no one,
Yeah.
as opposed to being with like the Trump Hillary thing or with Trump Biden or any other George Floyd, not George Floyd
There were
type
people
thing.
saying neither of them with Hillary and Trump. That was a thing. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
take that. I think a lot of people take that's the route that I tend to take. But no, I think when you're talking about like the average person,
Yeah.
they're not thinking of it in terms of support the beheaders or support another state's war. They're just going to buy into, well, it's Israel's land, or it's like, well, it's not their land. And they're going to be polarized into, they're going to ignore the bad parts of their team's thing. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is very clearly pro state of Israel is a right wing thing, and pro Palestine is a left wing thing.
Yeah.
And people will just fall in line because that's just what happens.
You're saying that
And
they're all sheep.
if you're around people, no,
Mhm.
I'm saying that we all take on the opinions of the people that are around us because it's what you do. That's just what you do. That's why you're supposed to hang out with Catholics if you want to be Catholic.
Yeah.
That's why you don't hang out with pagans, because you're just going to become pagan. And that doesn't mean that your beliefs are invalid. That just means you're a human being. And so, like, hang out with people who are right. I don't know what to tell you. Saints hang out with saints. So you're not hanging out with saints.
But everybody thinks that they're hanging out with people that are right.
Yeah. And a lot of them are wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
Can't do much about that. I'm probably wrong with
You
a few
are.
things.
Many
I'm
things.
probably, yeah. I'm trying to pare down who I hang out with. I'm trying to just hang out with saints. That's how I'm trying to be. You're up there. You're on the list.
That's me, baby.
That's why I married my wife. She's a very good person, very holy, striving after holiness. She's working through the Old Testament. She's killing it. She's
That's
like
great.
asking our priest questions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Like specifically, she's like, I need to work through this. I'm such a fan of my wife. I'm gonna like talk about her for a second.
Okay.
But she's like, I need to like struggle through the Old Testament because I've avoided it. And I think this is like a really common struggle. Did you like struggle with the Old Testament, like the violence in the Old Testament?
Once I learned that God is all powerful and doesn't make mistakes, then I pretty much was like, all right, well, if he asked them to commit violence, then it was probably good. You know,
I was kind of in the same boat, but I'm not. I don't know. I know a lot of people who like struggle with the same thing. But she's like, I just got to face this, and she's like just working through it.
Yeah,
and I'm just like I'm super impressed. But
I listened to a really interesting podcast. I've started to listen to Orthodox podcasts because I've found that Catholic podcasts either treat you like you're an idiot or yeah, that's pretty much the only thing. Like when they're or it's like really
Orthodox
academic.
podcasts just assume that you are an idiot. They just don't treat you like one. You know.
No, I don't think that's it. I think it's like Catholic podcasts are either like this is the first time that you've ever heard about the Book of Joshua, or it's like super dry and super academic, and there's like not really any in between. But I started listening to this podcast called The Lord of Spirits, and I love it because it's like two Orthodox priests, like one's from Alabama, one's from, I don't know, somewhere, like they're just American priests. And they like talk about scripture as if you like already know what's going on, but not in a way that's really dry. And it's like, oh, it's so refreshing. But
that's nice.
But they were talking all about the they were talking about some of the violence in the Old Testament, specifically as it relates to like idolatry, and they separated out the differences between like idolatry towards pagan gods and idolatry towards Yahweh. and how like there's a difference between worshiping like the golden calf as a part of like a Baal worship ritual versus like trying to worship Yahweh in an idolatrous form.
Sure.
Which I'm struggling to remember the exact example that they use. But anyway, it was just really interesting. And there's always more to learn about the Old Testament because there's all these things that like everyone's afraid to talk about it because they either talk about it in a really dry academic way or they talk about it like you're 5. And there's like for someone like us who's like, I'm formed. Can you please like teach me something, that
I want to experience this in an emotional way. Like my priest was talking about it. I was sitting at the table and he was like kind of answering Phoebe's questions. And he was like, he just said something that stuck with me. He was like, we don't understand what tribal warfare was like.
No.
We don't understand what it's like to live in a nomadic warring tribe where you could be attacked at any moment from any side. And the only option is forward and killing. And I was like, that's fair. That's like super crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like a very emotional and it's everyone's involved. And you're like, my children are here and they're not safe. Like imagine if your wife and your son did not have a home and like you were responsible for keeping them safe.
They were in a tent behind you and there were people with swords and bad intentions in front of you.
Yeah.
And like,
and you're like, I have to,
that's it. Right. There's only 2 options. And it's like, what are you going to choose? We forget that like life used to just be that way. Like there was always a risk of like someone coming in and being bigger than you and stronger than you, which is why people lived in communities and worked together to have local militias and like work together so that it wasn't just one guy with a pistol on his front yard, pointing at a tornado being like, I'm going to get you. Like there's like a group of men.
Oklahoma City moment.
Yeah. You know me. Doxed. Anyway, I think in terms of all this, I think people need to not overreact. They need to not act with their feelings because I think people forget that propaganda is real, and like there are people that are actively interested in manipulating your opinions and your emotions about this conflict.
Yes, correct.
And they are trying to get you really invested in their side, which is why I don't buy into the Free Palestine thing. It's why I don't buy into the we got to fund Israel thing. Like it's sad that the Israelite people or the Israelis were murdered. Like innocent people should not die. It's also sad that people are going to die when Israel bombs the crap out of the Gaza Strip tomorrow. Like that's also sad. So it's like no one here is winning. This is just an ethnic blood feud. I can't allow myself to be whipped up into a frenzy and like choose one side or the other because someone is trying to buy my opinion.
Yeah.
For a reason that is not in my benefit. It could be because of the election next year. It could be because of something else going on. There's something that they want me to believe that's setting the stage for some other thing. I don't know. But like the only way to kind of go through this is to be discerning, pray that it will end. Like ask God to end the violence because I think we forget that like Jesus is the Prince of Peace. And it's like peace comes from Christ and Christ alone. And until the Jews and the Muslims know Jesus Christ, they will not know peace. Like that's the main issue, like they are going to be at war forever until they accept Jesus being the Son of God and like the King of Kings. And so it's like, we need to pray for that to happen
and instead of being
like, well, let's bomb Iran, like that doesn't solve anything. You know what I mean? So that's the thing that I wanted to leave the people
and just give our stuff back, please. I promise it'll be nice and clean.
What, the churches?
Yeah,
that they took from us.
Back to churches, please. Come on.
Now is the time for the Vatican to send in a Delta strike force and take back what's ours.
Dude, the fear mongering with this has been so funny. Did you see people like freaking out because I forgot the name of it, Hassad or whatever. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. We're gonna forget the name in like 20 years.
Hassan Piker, the streamer.
Hassan Piker called for no. Whatever the people are doing, their name. They called for a global day of jihad.
And that's tomorrow.
The way that I read it, I read it in the way that like when the Vatican calls for like a global day of grandparents. I was like, Like today's World Grandparent. Everyone's like, good tweetman was like, watch out for your local jihad in Lawrence, Kansas. And I was like, yeah, like when Pope Francis calls for a global day of grandparents, like, watch out, your grandma's coming for you.
She's coming.
Squeeze you on the cheek and give you a hard candy and ask why you're not pregnant yet.
A little close to home there for you.
No, I'm just kidding. My grandma does ask me when we're having another one though, but it's because the clock's ticking, you know. Like
she doesn't have much else going on, to be fair, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of what
she's maternal. It makes sense that she wants more babies.
I get it.
Yeah, stay safe out there. It'll be interesting to see because tomorrow is the global day of jihad. So this might be one of those like foot in our mouth moments. Like it might be really bad, and we might have to be
That's why we're sorry. At the end. We're sorry. Put it at the end. We'll cut it out.
We'll cut it out. We won't cut it out. But it'll probably not be much of anything. Nothing ever happens. That's the thing you have to remember. So we're going to get to the bonus show, which you can listen to on patreon.com/thecrunch. If you support us at the $10 a month and up level, you can listen to our bonus podcast where we are free, unfiltered. We tell our deepest, truest opinions about things. We're not afraid to be canceled. We work out the rawest of raw things. I give my real opinion on Israel. And I don't know if that's a pitch. I don't know if that's a pitch for anybody. We swear, we reveal parts of our bodies, and we know it's the same. It's the same show. It's the same show. So check it out. If you like it, patreon.com/thecrunch. Patrick, you got anything else for the people?
Join us next week for our global day of donating on Patreon. Everyone's got to do it.
Thank you for listening. Please pray for us. We will be praying for you, and we will see you all